God told me that.
All right, we're ready to start. Thank you for being here tonight. It's good to be here with you. Missed seeing y'all Sunday, but I got to watch the service Sunday evening. Had a good time with Dustin this past weekend at their church, and just keep doing your prayers. Some great things happening in their area right there where they're reaching out in that community, and I'm excited that Dustin's a part of that. So y'all just don't pray for him as doing that. As far as tonight goes, I'm not going to stay up there a long time. I'm going to let the ladies have it tonight and share it. You know, we have, since we've come back to doing our Wednesday night services, I've tried to use this time for us to be really focusing in on prayer and different things that we can be praying about and different missions that are right here around us that we can be involved in. And each month through this year, I'm really trying to focus on something different. And of course, with the month of March, my focus right now is on our teachers, because there's so much that has gone on over the last year within our school district, and with all of the teachers, countywide and statewide and things like that. Plus, we've gone through our consolidation and things like that. So there's been so much happening all at once, and I know there's been a lot of changes that our teachers are faced with, changes that our students are faced with, and how we're having to deal with the pandemic, even as a church. It's changed how we're handling things. There's been several times when we were doing our videos on Wednesday nights that I was really wanting to use a dry erase board, and I wanted to draw some things on it and show you some things. And as I was practicing, I realized I'm going to have to learn how to write backwards so that I can show y'all on the camera. And I can't write backwards, y'all. I write sloppy enough one way. So just seeing some of the things that our teachers are dealing with has just kind of brought some of these things to my mind. So I asked for Carrie and for Amy to come tonight and just share with us some of the things that they have had to deal with in our schools, and some real practical ways that we can be a part of partnering with them and praying for our teachers, not just at the primary school, but we're kind of focused on them because they're right here, and we can kind of deal with those right there close by. But we want to be praying for all of our teachers throughout our school districts, and just lifting them up. And of course, our mission project right now is I'm asking everyone to consider purchasing a $10 gift card for our teachers at primary school to Subway or to McDonald's. We need 87. I hope you saw that change in the bulletin when I talked to Dr. Priest. He told me we needed 7 more, so it was 87 total. So right now I have a total of 24 gift cards, and I have been given money for 20 more. So that's 44 gift cards total that I have right now. So I'm looking to get 87 of those by the end of the month, and then I want to talk to Dr. Priest about a time when I can bring those over to them and kind of work that out with them. But thank you so much for being here. I'm going to open up a word of prayer, and I'm going to turn it over to Carrie and Amy. Okay? Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we come before you tonight, thankful so much for this time that we can come together and worship, Lord, and we can learn about what's going on right here in our own backyard with how our teachers are having to deal with so many different changes that are going on from day to day, Lord. I pray that, God, you would just be with Carrie and Amy right now. Father, I pray that you would just remove any kind of anxieties and nerves they may have. Lord, just fill them with your spirit, Lord, and just touch their mouth and touch their tongues, Lord. Give them the words to speak. And Father, I pray that we, as their church family, would just come alongside them and all of our teachers, lifting them up in prayer, in order to find ways that we might be able to minister in Jesus' name to them. Thank you so much, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray these things. Amen. Gary, turn it over to you.
You said hold that mic. All right, so hey, how are y'all?
Good.
Normally I do feel nervous talking to adults. I do fine with kids, but not with y'all. Y'all are here all the time, so I feel fine talking to y'all. For me as a teacher, I started off in nursing, and so going into teaching, one of my favorite parts was just that interaction with the students and forming that relationship. And I have students that I've taught that are now my friends that live all across the country, but they still message me and I still call them. And a lot of the students I have now, I probably could pass by in the store and I couldn't tell you who they were. Maybe if they have a mole on their forehead, I would be able to recognize that. That's about the only thing that you see of most of them that have remained virtual. So for me, that's been a big thing, just not being able to form that relationship with them that I'm used to doing with my students. There's been a lot of things for me personally that have been frustrating, and I know for some other teachers, having students not doing their work is a really big one. I realize that there's a lot of parents that have had to leave their children at home, and so they're trying, they're telling their kids do your work, and then they go to work themselves. And there's just a lot of kids that are not following through on that. And so I know parents are struggling, but for us as teachers, it's real hard because we're trying to keep up with all of these assignments. Who hasn't turned it in? It's a lot. You always have kids that don't turn assignments in, but not at the magnitude that we're having now. Kids not showing up to class. I think the biggest issue with that is a lot of them know that as long as they go back at some point and do the work, that they're going to give them credit for being there. So they don't bother to show up. They don't log in. And so this is, here I am, I got kids in the classroom, I have kids online, and I have my cell phone out, and I'm dialing numbers, or I'm sending messages. Where are you? Are you logging into class today? Why aren't you here yet? While other kids are doing other things, I'm sending these messages out. I know at the beginning of the semester when all of my students, because I have Bamberg students, so they didn't have Microsoft Teams to be able to get online. I had online, and then I also had my phone up, and I had FaceTime going. And I had like 3 kids on FaceTime just so they could still be in class and, get the information and not get so far behind. So that's another issue that we're still struggling with. And it's not just kids that we can't reach, it's parents. I specifically have one child now that I have sent messages through Remind, I've sent email messages, I have called both cell phone numbers, left messages, and I am yet to get a call back from that mother. This child is not showing up for classes on a regular basis. The only assignments that she ever does is her tests and her quizzes when we're together in class when she's there. And she makes great grades. I mean, she's making A's. She refuses to do any of the classwork, any of the homework, any of those things. She's not doing that. The only way that I've been able to get that mother is one day the child was online and I said, hey, is your mom home? And she said, yeah, and everybody else had logged out. I said, please go get your mom and have her come stand in front the computer screen. And so I was able to talk to her that one day. I talked, she didn't really say anything, and nothing has changed since that conversation. So it's just really disheartening, dealing with those types of things. When they're in the room, I never had an issue when I had my kids in the room getting them to do their work. They were going to do it. Spending less time with students, but having to work harder and more hours. I think everybody who's a teacher would agree. So we have less time in the classroom with our students, but we're spending more time at work, or we're spending more time at home planning and preparing the way that, the district has changed, using Canvas. I know other schools were using Canvas before. Nobody was using it to the magnitude that we're having to use it now. The district in the middle of the year came up with this new format that you have to use to upload your information. And so additionally, to everything else that we're trying to get together and remember to do, they keep adding new stuff. So now, I know you've been doing it, and I know it's been working, but now I want you to do it this way, because we need to have everybody doing it the same way. So then you have to go through and try to learn that. So I know, like, the first time I tried to set my Canvas up for this new semester with the new template, it was probably took me an hour or more for just one class to get all the assignments put in, all the information uploaded, PowerPoints, the assignments, to get all that done. Now, since I've gotten it, I've kind of copy and paste a lot, and then just kind of delete this and replace that word. It's kind of generic, because that's the easiest way to do it with the different assignments. But it's a lot more time that we're spending doing paperwork, doing computer stuff. I've worked from home a couple times with different things, like when Kenny had COVID, and then, you know, maybe we were exposed around somebody who would, so we quarantined for those 14 days or whatever. And I had to tell myself I had to quit, because I was constantly going in there to my computer, because I had it home. So I was, you know, it was 11 o'clock at night, and I was in there looking, oh, has anybody submitted an assignment? You know, just hoping something else was there, or somebody had turned something in. There is a constant feeling of inadequacy, the way that we're teaching. I know how I was able to go through content with my textbook versus the content that we're having to using in order to be able to provide this information in a digital format. I feel like a lot of times that things I used to teach that I thought were real important or have been left out of this information. And so I try to add as much as I can, but again, we have time restrictions. We're only teaching 4 days a week, and I have actually less time in a day in addition to that 1 day of instruction that I'm missing. So you have to cut something out if you're going to get finished. Feeling guilty because you don't feel like you're given 100% is another feeling that's pretty consistent throughout this year. As far as our district goes, I'm putting this on Facebook. I might not should say everything that I was going to say on here, but we do have some communication issues that I think we're working on in our district. I'll say it that way. But those communication issues, you know, some of it's maybe from, you know, the higher up to our school, and some of it is just within our school personally, where we're not getting things that we need when we need them, or we're being told things after the fact, or that kind of stuff that really makes it hard for us to do what we're supposed to do. A lot of technology changes lately, so again, mid-year, you know, you get, oh, we're getting you these nice new boards. They're already in your room. We've taken your projector down. Figure out how to use them, okay? Kind of thing. So you're supposed to continue instruction, but there was no time to prepare for that. They were in your room. You know, your projector was there one day. Your owl was there the next day with your clear view screen. So that's a big adjustment for all of us. And I guess the last thing I was just going to tell you is I know that a lot of teachers are struggling with what's going on, and there was a teacher that I ran into in our district, and she'd been teaching over 25 years in our district, and she was telling me that she was sad because she was going to retire this year, and I said, well, you know, why are you retiring? And she said, I just can't keep teaching when I have 70% of my students fail in my class. And so that's how disheartened she was, that to see that, she just said, I just can't keep doing it. She said, I'm getting the technology, which I'm real excited about, you know, because she's an older teacher. And she said, so it's not the technology that's running me out. I just can't take having that many of my students failing. So that's all I have. I'll let Amy share, and then I guess if y'all have questions for us, we'll do that. But
Carrie, is it kind of just kind of a broad consensus with the teachers as far as, you know, feeling that inadequacy and that guilt, and like,
I think for teachers that I've talked to, it is that, you know, it's not the same.
yeah.
You know, and you know, with our district, because we've been virtual for so long, and a lot of students are still virtual. Like in my classroom, at a max, I may have 6 kids that show up, and I think that's probably a lot for some teachers. Some teachers probably don't even have that. And the only reason I probably have that many is because those are Bamberg students, and Bamberg has been going back to school. So they were eager to get their kids back in our classrooms. But
There's been other teachers I've spoken to in different areas that kind of feeling that same way as far as they're counting down the years when they can retire. Because it's like, they said, if it keeps going this way, I can't do this.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I've heard that out of many mouths.
I've been in your classroom, I thought about you so much. How in the world can she do what she does virtually when I see how you handle the classroom and everybody's there?
Well, thank you, Miss Louise. I'm trying, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I know 100%. I feel bad, especially for those kids that really want to learn and those kids that are trying real hard. And, I know they're not getting everything that they could have got, that they're not going to be as prepared as they could have been if they were in the classroom the whole time.
Yes, you can, but I just don't see any way that you could do it.
Well, in matter of fact, last semester, in order to get finished, my students didn't have to work over the Christmas break. In order to get through, there was like 3 more modules that they had to do. And so they had to work through Christmas break, otherwise we would have not covered all of our state content for that course. And so now I'm trying to, I hate to say, you gotta do this under spring break, but I got to figure out where I am. I think I'm a little bit better off than what I was last semester, but I may have to do that. I hate doing that, but I need to be able to finish. And see, my kids are dual enrollment, so this is a college credit course. And so not only am I trying to meet, the high school requirements, I'm trying to still meet the requirements of the college so that it's legitimate college credit.
So did you teach during December? During the holidays?
So I use an online software program for my students. It's called Health Center 21. And during the regular part of the year when we're together, I do online lectures. So I do teach, and they can ask questions and all that. But the program itself has interactive lessons already pre-recorded with the content. So for those chapters, they didn't get it from me, they just got it from the pre-recorded from the program. Yeah. So they still got it, just those extra things that I would have told them, and like the personal experiences and examples that I usually share to relate it to real world, they didn't get that from me.
Right.
Sorry, I keep telling you for a long time. Anybody else want to ask me a question?
I want to wait till Amy stands up. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was going to say. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
So I have to first of all thank you all for your prayers and for adopting Ebenezer Primary School. Your prayers were truly felt. I have shared the last 2 Sunday sermons with my principal, and he has both times come to me and thanked me for the prayers that you've offered. This past week when Miss Ann prayed, I'm sorry I was a blubbering mess, but that was for my grade level specifically, and I was able to share that with my teammates on Monday morning, and their faces lit up, and it's been a great week this week, so thank you very much for that. The gift cards are more than we can ask for. It's the smallest things right now. Today I had a fellow colleague come in, she's dressed in Oliver Green, and she had this cute basket, she had green Hershey Kisses, and we were like, chocolate! So we were just excited for something, just a treat, and it's the smallest things right now, so we thank you for that. I think any teacher will tell you that planning is the key to teaching. And if you don't have a plan before you start a lesson, you're going to probably fall flat on your face. So a year ago from this week, we had no plan. And I think that's the worst fear that a teacher may have, is that we have no plan. But within literally 24 to 48 hours across the state of South Carolina and our nation, teachers came up with a plan that would actually work. Me specifically, it was kind of tough because my students in K4, we house kindergarten age 4 all the way to 2nd grade at our school. We have about close 600 students. We have anywhere from 500 to 600. They did not have devices of their own. And so we were a little panicked because we don't have anything to give these children to sit home for them to do work on. We have computers in the classroom, but nothing mobile that they can take. So thinking about every child having a device during last year, it just wasn't possible with the time constraints that we were on, and the money, of course, was not there. So I had to come up with some innovative plans and ways to deliver instruction to my students. But it became a problem, especially because in our rural area, we don't have the broadband that places like Rock Hill and Spartanburg, and Janet can speak for that when we are doing Facebook Lives. Just in our area, we don't have that kind of broadband strength for numerous people to be on the internet all at once. And so it was probably okay last March and April and May. And then when we handed out devices this year, it started crashing. It just couldn't handle it. So that was a huge thing that we had to overcome, as well as I didn't have children that some of their parents didn't even have technology. They may have a phone, but the phone might be something that they only have a certain amount of minutes on. So for me to actually deliver instruction to them last March through June just wasn't possible. But I did find, I did have an app. Thank goodness the Lord was watching out for me that I already used, that I delivered messages, and basically it's like a text message that I can send out information to my students, and I started recording videos. And the bad part was they had to be under 5 minutes because the app wouldn't hold anything longer than 5 minutes. So I found myself recording 3 lessons per day for 5 days a week, just trying to really squeeze in just a mini lesson to get it out to the students. And we were sending home paper packets at that point. So we'd have pickup days at the primary school. They would come in, they would pick up their packets and take them home for about 2 weeks. And so I was sending out videos for them. It worked. It got the information out. But again, I felt the inadequacy of being so small and such a large task being placed on my plate. But through all of this, I sat down as Brian asked me to speak, and I thought, I don't want to come to you with all the negatives, because I feel like through this whole pandemic, we all have learned something, of course, but God has a plan through all of this, and there is a point, even though this is not something I don't think that God would allow us to go through. I don't think this is something He would put on us, but He would be there for us to help us through it. And Mr. Brian actually had to answer that question for me last year when all this started happening. I was up texting him one night late. I'm sure Michelle's thinking, who are you talking to?
So used
But
to
I
it.
was asking questions. And so I had to come up with 3 different points that what have I gained from all this? And the first one is that God gives grace every day. Hebrews 4:16 says, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. So many students across this country needed a teacher last year, and even now. They needed us, just as we as Christians need God every day. I can remember this year, I was placed in the room where we were actually able to give devices to our K4 through second grade students. And they told me, okay, you get to train all these people coming in. I'm like, thanks. So here walks in, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, neighbors, just friends of the family, and they're bringing these 4-year-old children in. The iPad is, of course, bigger than they are almost, and they're saying, we're telling them, okay, here's where you're going to go to meet with your teacher, and here's where you're going to get your assignments, and this is how you can contact your teacher, and wait a minute, we got to set up the device first. And there were all these different things, and I kept thinking, wait a minute, you mean to tell me, and I have this in my classroom right now, my 7-year-old child I'm teaching, her 73-year-old grandfather is raising her, has to show her how to use this iPad every day and get on classes? And I mean, no offense, Miss Louise, I love you, but literally, these people don't even know how to turn on these devices, and you're asking them to use this every day. Love you, Gran. Go, Gran! So, the reality hit me that no matter what this year, even though we now have given you what you need, you still need grace. You still need understanding, just like God gives us grace every day. And that's the biggest thing I've had to learn. I've had teachers come to my classroom and they're not turning in their work, and they're da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, wait a minute, stop for a second. I need you to ask yourself one question. Have you asked that child, why aren't you turning in your work? What's going on? Did you miss, why did you miss class yesterday? Ask the questions. And I've learned so much from that. Is it okay that they're missing assignments? No, it's not okay. Is it okay that they're missing instruction? No, it's not. And it becomes very frustrating because it's the same ones that repeatedly go through that process. But then I also think about what they're experiencing at home. So that was one thing that I had to take away. The second point that I wanted to say was from Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. I still face challenges. Carrie and I face challenges every single day. I one day took a picture and sent it out in the choir feed of all of my screens. I was like, pick one, you guys. Which one would you like? And I literally think I had like 5 going that day. So my phone is going off, my iPad is going off, I have 2 screens in my classroom, and now I have a board. So all of these different things are going on. And, I keep thinking back to last year this time. If you would have told me that I would have to teach, which I will be doing starting this month on Tuesday, I will have 7 children face-to-face with me and 15 virtually, I would have had a panic attack. And I would have told you, I can't do this. And I would have walked out. But I'm going to do it because God has given me that strength. And He's given me the power to do that somehow, some way. I don't know how some days. But even though there's been personal things that have been going on in my life, and a lot of you may know some of those things, during this time, last year, my husband had been working for the company that he was a part of for 20 plus years, and some big changes happened in the company, and Ricky was no longer happy. And during the whole pandemic, he was home, working from home. I'm teaching from home, Brantley's home, of course, learning. And I'm seeing this every day in his face, how disappointed and how upset he is, and how he's not enjoying his job anymore. And that affected our family. And so I began to reach out to Michelle and Brian and ask for prayers, and other friends and family, please pray for us. And God answers prayers because my husband starts a new job this coming Monday that he's so excited about. It took a while, and I kept telling Ricky, God's really working on our patience here, but we've got to trust Him. It'll come, and it did. It came. I also had some health issues. Miss Louise, I can't thank you enough for reaching out and praying for me, the others of you that did. There's no doubt that the stress of school was due to a lot of the issues that I was having health-wise. Brantley having to distance herself away from friends and family members, and you don't do that to a preteen. That's a no-no. But she had to sacrifice her birthday last year because it was the week that everything got shut down. So all this being said, God was faithful, and He has brought us through a lot this year. My last point and my final point comes from Philippians 4:19. And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus. God has been so good to me and to my family and the students that I teach. Teaching in a normal situation is hard, but teaching in a pandemic is a challenge. I would often hear stories of my students, and as Carrie was saying, I miss those relationships. Getting to sit down at a lunch table with children literally spitting in my food, and I don't mean to sound nasty, because they want to tell me about their ball game last night. I was okay with that. It is what it is. I teach 7 and 8-year-olds. So not getting to do that anymore and not getting to hear their stories. Miss Thompson, guess what we did yesterday? Or Miss Thompson, I finally know how to add 100 plus 100. You know what it is? No, what is 100 plus 100? Those simple stories I miss so very much. Now, I don't get to hear those stories, I actually see them. I see them through computer screens of unclean houses. I hear language that would make me curl up in a ball and cry. And children on the other end of that screen don't even react. because it's normal for them. Those things scare me, and those things bother me more than ever now. But again, God has been faithful in taking care of those children. Just yesterday, I got a call from a friend of mine that has asked me to sing in a good friend's funeral this coming Friday, and I had to call her back right in the middle, in between two classes really quick to tell her, yes, I'll sing. And I was asking her the time of the funeral and all these different things, and I said, okay, I'll see you Friday. And I hung up the phone, and one of my children looked up at me, and he said, Miss Thompson, you got to sing for a funeral? And I said, yeah. And he said, aren't you sad? And I said, yeah, I am kind of sad. I said, but, the other part of me knows that I'll see my friend again one day. And he said, you will? Is she going to come back alive? It's always a no-no that we as teachers can't share our relationship with Jesus Christ. But I took a stand yesterday, and I looked at him, and I said, I'll get to see her again one day because Jesus is in my heart. And he looked down at his heart, and he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And so he began to ask questions. Of course, I couldn't go into a lot of detail, but that child has been on my mind and my heart ever since. So I'm going to ask that you lift Justin up, if you will, in your prayers. Please lift him up. He was curious, and he wanted to know, and I shared as much as I could, and I went as far as I could, but I had to stop, unfortunately. But my last thing that I want to say is at the very beginning of the year, a friend of mine that teaches with me, she came in one morning and she was handing out these cards. And as she handed out the cards, she went to every classroom and she handed a card to each one of us. And she said, I just wanted to share this with you. And she said, it was in my devotion the other day, and I just felt the need that you all needed one. And so I took the card and I put it right on my document camera right beside my computer. And it was the verse from Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as if you're working for the Lord and not for human masters. And so I think Carrie and I, something that we'd like to leave with you all tonight, we have a card that you can take with you, is that we're not superheroes. We're not anything special. We're just doing God's work. We're just doing what God's given us the power and his direction to do. It's nothing special about us, but God's chosen each one of us and so many others in our nation to share our love of teaching with others. We are the ones that get the benefit. So again, thank you all for allowing us to share tonight our experiences, but most importantly, thank you for your prayers. I'll answer questions if you have any on that K through 2N Carrie's on the higher end of teaching, but most of what we do is about the same. I'll gladly hand this over to you, Ms. Ryan.
I will say too, Brian, that one thing, what Amy's talking about, seeing the kids online, you see what the house is like. And I had a student from first semester who didn't do well at all, and I tried to work with her, and I gave her all these opportunities whenever she could to make up work. But every time she was online, she was either holding a baby because her mom was at work, so she was taking care of the baby, or there was a toddler that would come in running and screaming because somebody did this and somebody did that. And so I don't really even know how that child could do school, because there were probably like 3 or 4 siblings that were there that she was trying to manage and trying to be online at the same time.
And I have even a second grader that every time he logged into class, he had his baby brother on his lap. He was trying to listen and focus, all while he's got baby brother here, and there was his sister that was probably about 3. She had an iPad or a phone or something going to keep her entertained while he was trying to focus and get his schoolwork done.
Wow.
And the internet is wonderful, but everybody can have great internet.
No. That's exactly what we hear.
When you're trying to check a student off, like my students had to do this project where they had to dress up like a person from the history of healthcare, and I did a talk show with them. So I dressed up too, and I was trying to make it fun. And so it was called Beyond the Grave, Who's Who in Healthcare, and I was their host, the fabulous nurse showman. And so anyway, I'm trying to do this presentation, and they're having to be interviewed, and they have this, you know, some of them have horrible Wi-Fi. And so they're trying to answer the questions that they're expected to know, and everybody is listening, and it's like, we're having technical difficulties, can you please repeat that? You know, the internet is definitely a challenge with a lot of students, being able to submit work, or being able to be online, and if you don't know which ones are telling the truth about that, and which ones are using it as a crutch, so you know, you kinda have to, you know. Sorry, I said the negative stuff, Amy said the great stuff. That's right, I went after Amy, because I knew she was gonna show me up, so I said, let me go before her, instead of after her. You do great.
There are many days that, you know, I have also had that negative, you know, there are many days that I come home and I'm just like, this is crazy, I've got to find a new job.
So I have a question for you. You know, being in the youth room, you hear a lot of the complaints, you know, like, I can't do this because, and so I just hear bits and pieces, and not having a child in the classroom anymore, I don't know. So my question is for y'all, my understanding from my kids here in school that talk to me tell me that if they are in class with you, that there's really very little interaction with you because you are teaching them and you're teaching virtually. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're by yourself?
Here spoke of something called an owl. These are new in our classrooms. They are, we named ours Ruckus, because he calls it Ruckus in our room whenever he came. I had the students name him. I was like, let's just name him. They're like, what about Ruckus? I was like, he's called one, that's his name. It is a cylinder type almost speaker that on the top has a 360-degree camera. And what happens is if Carrie is speaking at the front of the room and I answer a question or I drop my pencil and make a loud noise, the screen automatically splits and it goes to the student as well as the teacher that is still talking. And so you're seeing the student fumbling around, you know, picking up their pencil or whatever. And so those have been the newest thing that has been a little crazy as far as the interaction goes. But for me, because our children are so young, they gave us parameters that we have to follow, that we aren't supposed to go over a certain amount of time in the class. So there is little interaction because we can only stay on with them for each class period that we have, no more than 30 minutes. So they wanted their screen time.
And you're in there by yourself.
I'm in there by myself.
So the ones that are sitting there in person aren't getting much more of you than the ones that are online.
Right, until I log off of class. You know, once I log off of class,
Yeah.
I do get some more interaction with the face-to-face students. Of course, we still have to wear masks and we still have to be socially distanced from them. So I can, you know, walk over to their desk, but we both have to be masked. They sit behind plexiglass dividers at their tables. And so, you know, I am able to interact with them and I am able to help them. But as far as the interaction goes, it's nothing like it used to be.
So one last question. When y'all went back to school, you know, was it this week that you went back?
We've been back since.
Well, I mean,
We've been back a while, but we're hybrid, is what they call, so we have two groups.
On the 29th is when the kids are gonna be, the ones that are coming back, there's still gonna be a bunch that stay virtual, but the ones that are hybrid now will be able to go Monday through Thursday.
right, so that's the 29th.
Right, and
Okay.
for the primary age,
Yes,
it's
sorry, that's fine.
Next
yeah.
week.
This week, middle school
Okay.
and high school will be the 29th, but we're starting on Tuesday of next week.
Do you find that you're having a lot of students come back? And if they're not, why don't you think they're coming back?
I don't think, if they're gonna be signed for virtual, I don't think they're gonna let them come back. The only ones that are gonna be coming back for 4 days are the ones that are already virtual, and
Really?
been coming 2 days. So the ones that signed up for Orangeburg Online, they still can't come back for the rest of the school year.
Okay.
They've committed to Orangeburg Online, which is the virtual, which is us teaching virtually. They can't come back right now, and I think the reasoning for that was to bring back them slowly. And so the face-to-face students will be able to come back the 4 days. Now, we do have special circumstances, very
For me, you do. I don't know about your other teachers, but if you want me to mark you here, I need to see you in the room, you know.
That was my question, so they do have to be there, like,
It's teachers.
so it's
Whatever that teacher does. I make mine put mine on, and I tell them I need to see you, because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put that camera on, and I'll see their ceiling fan. And then I'll say, hey, so-and-so. Or I say, okay, class is over, you can log out, and I still see this child log in. Why? Because they're not even in the room.
Right.
They don't know that it's time to go, because they walked out of the room. And so that's a constant battle saying, you know, I need to be able to see you so that I know that you're here.
And we have the opposite problem with our children. They'll log in. I don't require them to turn on their camera, but they do have to answer questions, so I don't wait when I hand raise. I just call names randomly to answer questions, and if I don't hear them, then I remove them from the class, so it wakes them up, and they're like, oh, I better answer that.
I've done that before. You drop them, you kick them out.
They come
I've
back
done that before too.
They come back in. I know you did. But we have the opposite problem as far as our younger children, because the parents want to sit right beside them and do all the work with them, and so you're answering the questions. So I'll unmute my mic. Granny doesn't do that. I know she doesn't. I'll unmute your mic, and you ask the question, you know, what is 8 plus 4? And you hear the parent or whomever in the background, and the kid goes, 12? And you're like, yes, very good, Grandma. That's exactly right. Good job. So, you know, those are the kind of things that, of course, you want, you know, the children interacting with you and answering the questions even if they're wrong. So that's been a hard thing to establish that with them. I keep telling them it's okay. It's okay if you get it wrong. It's not a big deal. But actually getting them to know that is a whole other story. It really is.
Gosh.
So I have a question, and like for Josh, he's done with the high school stuff, but when he had a class the first semester, and I guess his hardest thing was, even when he went back hybrid, there was only like 4 students in his class, and although he loves all of his classmates, I don't mean that, but his core group of friends are in the first part of the alphabet, and he's in the last part, so he was not really in a classroom with all his good buddies. And being isolated, not like that, you know, that's really been tough on him, not having his friends, like that human interaction, that just like to be right there. And it's been a tough year because of that. So when your students are at school, because I know when Joshua was at school, even though there were other people in the classroom, he wasn't interacting with those folks. So you were talking about, you know, after you cut that camera off, you can interact with them some, but do the children get to interact with one another much? Or the students?
In my class, they have been. Like I said, most of the students that I have in my classroom are Bamberg students. I have, I think, one Ironwood County student that is coming that's not virtual, that'll be there. So they do talk with one another, but I think part of that, why I'm seeing more of that, is because from Bamberg District, they've been laxer with them interacting with one another, and, you know, 6 feet, and keep the mask on there. It's just a different environment at Bamberg, so they're used to that, and then they're coming to us, and I'm constantly having to say, you need to go back to your little seat, you can't be over there chatting with that person, and stuff like that. But, I mean, they do talk with one another, within my classroom, and I try to, like, when I teach, I am talking, you know, I'm standing in front of, you know, screen, talking to them, but I'm also looking at, you know, I don't just stare at my screen. I look at the kids in the class, and it's just like, you know, if you're looking across the audience. I look this way, and then I look at the camera, and then I look out and talk to them, and then I look at the camera. So that the ones in the classroom feel like they're included. And so sometimes I'll specifically say, how about y'all, anybody on the computer, do you have an example of such and such? And they may share, and I'll say, how about y'all in the classroom? Somebody in here have something. So I do try to, you know, allow them to be able to interact that way, and they can hear each other. And I hope my computer screen is actually on my clear view.
in this day and age, as much as I know my kids are dependent on cell phones and gaming, and they're so used to being on electronics, but they have missed that being able to see their friends, touch their, be in the same environment. It's been amazing to me how hard it's been on, like in my household especially. I mean, that's the only one I can speak for, but it's been hard.
Well, we have 4-year-old children at our school and 5-year-old children, and so to keep them apart is a lost cause.
Yeah.
But I have to say that the students have been very good about wearing their masks. They don't complain. When we first started, of course, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna keep us on," and I'm like, "Yes, we have to keep them on." But I have to say that they've been very good about wearing that. I was just done with the whole you can't go on the playground kind of thing, and so we came up with our school that we were going to have nature walks every day, and so it's just to get the kids out and get some fresh air. We've got to get out of 4 walls and looking at a screen all day, and so we do go outside, and the kids do get to run around and play. If they do come together while they're running around in the backyard of the school, they have to have their mask on. But if they are apart from each other, we take the ball out and I sanitize the ball every day, but they can't touch the ball. They can only kick the ball. And so they stand in a big circle and they kick the ball back and forth, and but they have to keep their mask on if they come in contact with each other.
They're probably so thankful for that ball.
Well, every day they're like, "Are you going to get the ball?" Yes, I'll get the ball. So it's just little things like that trying to keep some kind of normalcy. These children are valued children. They're happy kids, and so those kinds of things. We do have little healthy competitions in the classroom. There's a computer program that we use called Dreambox that we just started, and so they gather as they solve math problems. They gather gold coins, and so they've been, I've got 20 gold coins, and other students, well, I've got 12, but I spent 10 of mine at the store to buy a new hat, for my character or whatever. So of course they share those things in class when they're working on it, working on the program. So that interaction has been good. But yeah, I miss the hugs. I miss the notes, the pictures that I made you this, things that I brought from home. Those kinds of things are tough.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming to share. I know it's hard to get up in front of people sometimes and talk, but I really do appreciate y'all preparing and stuff and sharing some of these things with us. I hope that you jotted some of these things down so that we can have some real good ways of lifting up our teachers each day. I've got a list here of some things here. But also, I hope every one of you will write down that name, Justin, because that's one we could be praying for, okay? It's one we could be praying for. So thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to close this in prayer and then turn it over to Woody for our choir practice, okay? Father, in Jesus' name, again, we come before you tonight, Lord, just thankful for this time to be able to hear some of the things that our teachers are going through in the classroom, Father. I know there's been so many different changes that all of us have faced in this past year. Father, there are still more changes that I'm sure are coming that, Lord, we're going to have to get used to. Father, just as Amy said, Lord, your grace is sufficient. Lord, you know how to guide us through each step of this pandemic and how to help us along and grow in our understanding and our learning and our knowledge. And I thank you so much, Lord, just for the technology that is available to us, Father, that we can continue to do some schooling in a way, Father, that can have our teachers interacting with our students in some way, Lord. And it's had an impact here, even in our own church family, as to how we are trying to do things even here. And I'm so thankful for our teachers. I pray to God you would just take care of them each day, keep them safe as they are interacting with each other and with their students and then having to go home. I pray to God that you would bless them each day, Father, give them a new strength every morning, Father, when they wake up and they put their feet on the floor and they put their clothes on and go to that school. I pray that, God, they would just be energized, Lord, from you, God, and that, Father, they would be able to speak clearly and our students be able to understand his circumstances are, don't know what all is going on at home. Father, don't know what kind of influences that he might have. I pray that, Father, you would put godly men and women and children in his life. That Father would speak the gospel. That Father would share the